Hare Krishna. Namaste. Chapter 5, entitled as Karma Sannyasa Yogam. Sloka 7. Yoga-yukto viśuddhātmā vijitātmā jitendriyaḥ sarva-bhūtātma-bhūtātmā kurvann lipyate. Here, it's my body. My and body are two different mama and aham comes, which implies the difference between the body and self. They argue that such statements have to be understood in this manner or the expression as they give two examples. The body of the wooden doll or head of Rahu. It is in the same expression. The body of wooden doll, though the doll and body are different, it means only one entity. In the same way, Rahu himself represents the head. Though the expression Rahu's head gives an idea of a difference between two, but in actuality, there's no difference. That's how one should understand when someone says, it is my body, it is my leg, and so forth. They place their justification through these examples. Charvaka doesn't admit to moksha concept. According to them, moksha means the dissolution, cessation of body. That's all. When one dies, it ends right there. And that is what moksha for them. The Charvakas also claim that their system of philosophy is supported by Upanishad. Unlike the Buddhist theory, who totally deny the Vedas. But Charvakas at times take something from Vedas to substantiate, justify their principle. But they are not right. They interpret it in a wrong way. In one of the passages of Chandogya Upanishad, it is stated that Prajapati, the chief of celestial deities, Devatas, taught this principle to Virochana, the chief of the demons, along with Indra. But Indra understood in a right manner, whereas Virochana did not get it. So the Brihaspati said that the body itself seen as reflected in the water, and that is Atma. So when we stand in front of the water, we see the reflection of our body, and that is Atma. That is how this was taught initially. Indra did not agree to it. Later he contemplated and he did not agree to it. He came back and got further instruction from the Prajapati. Whereas Virochana was fully convinced with this concept. Not only he was convinced, and he went and taught the same principles to his associates. Therefore, Charvakas say that their principles are supported in Upanishads and in Vedas. And they also claim that few orthodox sages upheld the same theory. We can see in Ramayana by a sage called Jabali, and in Mahabharata also they are present by the name Lokayatikas in the assembly held in the hermitage of sage Kanva. Now let's see the defects in their understanding. The first criticism on this school of thought is their source of authority is only pratyaksha, direct perception. Knowledge not only comes through direct perception, they can be derived from anumanam, inference, or shabda, verbal testimony. But they do not agree to any of these things except pratyaksha. I have to see, show me. That's what I will believe in. Then Charvaka claims that Niti Shastra and Kama Shastras are the ways for acquiring wealth and enjoying sensual pleasure. This is far from the truth in reality. Niti Shastra does not permit the acquisition of wealth as opposed to dharma. It has to be within the boundary of dharma. Similarly, Kama Shastra, regarding the various ways of indulging in sensual pleasures, are permitted within the limit of Dharma Shastra, not outside it. So that's not the way that they agree to it. They think you can just apply this however you want. Charvaka criticize the rigid orthodox way of life in accordance with Varna and Ashrama, which is directly against Bhagavad Gita, because Krishna said clearly he is the one who created Varnashrama system and given the law book, the rules, how the Varnashrama system should be followed. But they criticize anyone who follows religion, anyone who does any religious activities. According to the concept of Atma that Charvaka said, I am fat. The Atma and body is one and the same, is defective. We cannot agree to that. By the example where heated iron rod appearing as red or the characteristic of the body is superimposed on the self, like how the heated rod superimposed the redness within the rod. Likewise, the characteristic of the body is imposed on the self. That's all. But that does not mean to say they are one and the same. And the point that they say, my body, myself, is one and the same, that there is no separate Atma and body. Then how about my house? That is not one and the same. House is different and the person who's living in the house is different. They can never be one and the same. Their example of the body of the wooden doll is unacceptable because the doll doesn't even have a life. And whereas the person has a life, so we cannot accept that example at all. Their theory that consciousness is a new principle that emerges out of combination of 4 physical elements, earth, water, fire and air. And they try to prove this by example of betel leaf, betel nuts, lime combination, which produces a redness or intoxicating quality. It also cannot be accepted, untenable, because there's a question arises whether this consciousness is present in each of these 4 elements. In other words, whether this intoxicating factor or redness present before the combination in each of these elements, betel leaf, nut and lime. If it is present in each of part of this body, in our case the example is just to understand the theory, which is combination of 4 elements, then each part should possess the consciousness. In other words, each ingredient should have the quality of that redness, that intoxicating factor. Otherwise cannot come into existence. Again, this can be discussed in detail to show how their understanding is not correct. Another point is they try to derive support from Ramayana, Mahabharata and so forth. Should be understood clearly by reading the passages in this literature, then we will come to know that Jabali's intention is not to promote Charvaka philosophy, rather to somehow bring Lord Rama back to Ayodhya. Likewise, the sages mentioned in the Mahabharata do not imply that they are followers of Charvaka philosophy. Rather, those are the persons well qualified to refute the arguments of Charvaka. Now coming to Bhagavad Gita, putting all this thing together, as per Bhagavad Gita, we know that the body and soul are two different entities. As per Gita, we know that karma, that is punya and papa, is true. A person does bad action, they have to suffer. A person does good action, they have to enjoy. The karma concept is true. As per Bhagavad Gita, life after death is true. Heaven and hell are true. Therefore, one has to be careful in what they do, how they attain wealth, how they enjoy the sensual pleasure. Everything matters. Everything is being accounted. Also, goal of life as per Gita is to attain God, moksha. That is, serve the Lord in his spiritual abode, as opposed to Charvaka, who doesn't believe in God, believe in Vaikunta, believe in moksha, anything other than just this world. They don't believe anything else. And to enjoy the world as much as possible, as long as one lives, and not to worry about things or anyone else, is their concept. It's totally against the Vedic teaching, it's against Bhagavad Gita. When they don't even agree to Atma, then where is the question of agreeing to sarva-bhūtātma-bhūtātmā that mentioned in this particular sloka? So we should be very careful with this philosophy. Otherwise, even one who is in the path of religion, spirituality, might get little sidetracked and caught into this attractive program. Namaste. Hare Krishna.